Um, all right, everybody, welcome into the Fantasy Sideline season. This is going to be week number 6. We are going to be talking about. We're recording this show on a Thursday, just so you guys know. I won't be available this weekend, so we figured we'd get it underway a couple days earlier. But all the main transactions have happened. If any trades happen, we could always talk about that on the next show. So, status quo, Krim, being joined again by my co-host Krim. 1-4 now, struggling. That was a brutal week last week. We gave you a lot of
Yeah.
crap last week for last. But what's your feeling coming out of that one?
That's kind of how I felt most of the weeks. I mean, obviously, if there's a close week, I'm bound to lose it. Apparently, this year, but you can't really dictate, or not dictate, more so predict someone scoring 4 touchdowns for anybody, let alone a flex player and a package running back at that. So
Yeah, I was rooting for you to win because then we'd all have a shot at the division. And Dana's cruising along at 5-0. So that 157 points and you lose. That's heartbreaking. That is. But then we all decide to make some moves, which we'll get into in a little bit. So, transaction wise this week, in terms of just free agent ads that went on the Wednesday, nothing crazy. Again, everyone's kind of subjective about points, right? Everyone can spend their points how they will, especially when you get later in the season. It's a lot more rare that you're going to have someone randomly pop up. Sometimes I see these point totals and I go, "Whoa, I bet you no one even put 5 on them." So it's kind of interesting, but DK Metcalf 25 points for Jay, Gerald Everett 18 for Tyler. DD Westbrook was picked up for 6 points by Peter. Those are really the significant ones. Any of those impact players for you?
yeah, DK. I mean, can be obviously in that offense. He's shown that he can catch touchdowns. The volume wouldn't necessarily be there or at to the point where I would give somebody 25 points. But Jay's in this spot where he's kind of desperate for anybody at this point, so he's kind of throwing darts at the wall here.
Yeah, I like DK Metcalf. He's not, like you said, he's not going to be huge on targets. He's had some pretty good games. Decent flex option, especially when you consider that it's really Lockett, Disley, and he's the next guy up. So, it's not a bad pickup. Jay could use whatever he can at this point. Tyler picking up Everett. Obviously, he had Greg Olson. He hasn't been doing that great. Everett's had a pretty good last couple games. It's a tight end. Why not take a shot on him, right? So that's kind of how I saw that one play out. But let's start talking about these trades. Let's get into it. I feel like that's what most people are going to be in here to try to see exactly what went down this week. A lot went down. First off, Jason Witten and Tyler Lockett were traded to you for Kenyon Drake and Austin Hooper. And all this went down yesterday, and it kind of all went down at different times throughout the day. This was the early morning trade. Kenyon Drake and Austin Hooper goes to you for Jason Witten and Tyler Lockett. And before we get into the other trades, let's talk about that one first.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my mindset here was I need a tight end. Tori has a tight end. She needs a receiver. I have a receiver. So it just so happened that the deal essentially benefited both of us at the time. And it felt like it was very even. Obviously, Kenyon Drake isn't someone's going to sit there and look at like, that could be a solid flex piece week in and week out. He hasn't shown us anything up to this point, so I wasn't really relying on him. I didn't again look at the matchups for him. Even I just kind of wanted the depth there, but I kind of got him on a week where I can play him if I wanted to, and I still just might depending on how I kind of feel and everything else. But tight end was obviously my primary target. Hooper being the number one tight end, I don't think I paid a whole lot for him.
Yeah, I mean, Hooper has jumped out to be that number one tight end to this point in the fantasy season. That team throws the ball a lot. So I think he can stay in the top 5 or 6. I don't know if he's going to finish the season at number one, but he's been putting up really good ball games as of lately. And he's been good for Tori. He's really kept her alive in a essence. Kenyon Drake, likely most times, is not going to be able to be even put in the lineup. This week against Washington is actually not a bad spot for him. I think they can get him some points there. But week in and week out, with that team being down as quick as they are, he's lucky to get 10 carries a game. So nice little extra piece there for sure. On Tori's end, she gets an elite receiver, which she desperately needed. She was very, very weak at receiver, and Lockett's been pretty good to this point so far, coming in at the number 9 receiver. And Witten, 12th tight end, which doesn't sound bad, but it's the 12th tight end in fantasy, so not much more to be said about that. Next trade up, and this is when it starts getting interesting, right? You trade with Tyler. You there were so many people talking yesterday, this and this, this and that. You went and you traded Ezekiel Elliott. Now, I know you've been shopping around a lot here and there, but it just kind of all of a sudden pop happened. Not much talk or not much me and you usually conversate a lot before something happens. This one just kind of went pop, boom, pow out of nowhere, and you got two reliable running backs in return, Lindsey and Damien Williams for Zeke. Were you hesitant at that, or do you feel very comfortable with it?
No, I mean, like you said in the past, with your deal last week, I believe, the ones you kind of don't talk about or just talk about, very briefly, are usually the ones that are the smoothest trades to kind of happen. Here, yeah, obviously it's Zeke, and that comes back to the same thing we saw with people in the past talking about names. Yes, Ezekiel Elliott is a top household name. Obviously, it's, he's an elite running back, like he's one of the best in the league. But in regards to being hesitant in trading him, I wasn't, more so because looking at production, it was basically a move of production. Lindsey and Zeke were kind of on pace for the kind of the same points so far this year. Obviously, that can change within a week or two, depending on matchups and such. But to get back Damien Williams, who I was very high on and still am, like before going into the draft. So getting somebody like that, it was more of a risk move in my part. But if he can pay off and become Damien Williams of, last year's season at the tail end and kind of give me that production week in and week out, I feel like I got a pretty good deal here.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things where Zeke, he's not been bad, right? I mean, would you say you've been disappointed in his performance so far? What would you really classify him so far?
It's tough to say I'm disappointed in what he's done. I mean, it's he's had solid numbers. There's only been 1 week that he had over 100, or 2 weeks, sorry, over 100 yards, and they were against garbage defenses. So to me, if it's taking Zeke to play a garbage matchup to reach that 100-yard mark, that it just shows that the team isn't kind of keying in on the run sometimes, and they're kind of letting it take a backseat to the passing game, which we can see that they are because Dak, I feel, this year is throwing the ball way more than he has in the past. Not only that, though, is that you would get Zeke involved in that short passing game, dump off game, and kind of get him into space and get him going. He has a season high of 30 receiving yards. To me, I feel like as Zeke isn't, necessarily an elite, pass catcher or kind of known as that, he can catch a ball fairly well and, make one move and you're off to the races. But the chances for that in a PPR league aren't there, and I just feel like I'm not going to get that out of him, and I'm not going to get kind of the, I wouldn't say dual threat, but the production of, I'm getting 20. I haven't reached 20 points once this season with him, and he's scoring touchdowns. He scored 4 of the last 5 times. He just to me, wouldn't say disappointing, but you're not looking at Ezekiel Elliott to get you, a 19-point week. Like you kind of expect 15 points week in and week out.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that you really have to look at, right? Because Zeke has not been bad. Zeke to this point has been at this point the 11th best running back in the league, but you need him to be top 3 or top 4, I feel. He's gotten 12.8 or higher every week, and most people are going to say that's darn good running back numbers, but it is Ezekiel Elliott. And when you compare him to what McCaffrey's doing for you, it makes it tough. And when you look at Lindsey, 12th best running back in the league. Like you told me the other day, they're very, very comparable. Now, in essence of the two, Lindsey's had 3 games which you'd go, not really happy with that. And he's had 2 big games. Zeke has yet to have that big game yet. And I've liked the way Lindsey's looked so far to the backfield. Damien Williams, now let me ask you this one. Damien Williams, first week looked good, got in the end zone. Second week was looking okay until he got hurt. 5th week, just came back last week, 5 points. You're pretty high on Damien Williams.
Yeah. I mean, just goes to show in that game, they didn't run the ball a lot, but Damien Williams had essentially the majority of the carries. He carried the ball, I think, 9 times. Like, Shady didn't see the field. Daryl Williams didn't really see the field that much. Like, the job is his to essentially lose, and I don't really see somebody like a Shady who's obviously taking a step back as he ages, and Daryl Williams who, with volume, can play well, but if without volume won't really be a factor, kind of getting anybody in front of him. Like, sharing again, and also sharing a time. If you are to share time with Shady in that offense, the goal line back will likely be Damian Williams, and that offense itself, with Tyreek Hill coming back, will then open up the field more so for somebody like Damian Williams when you have to take, care of Tyreek Hill on the edge. Sammy Watkins kind of in the middle. You still have, Mecole Hardman and then Robinson. Those guys are kind of emerging too. So Kelsey's still obviously there too. So getting a piece of the offense here is what I wanted to do. And I kind of feel like the running back is crucial in fantasy. We all know that. So getting the Chiefs running back kind of at a discount is something I wanted to do. And I kind of was able to do that here.
Yeah, and Damian Williams has been really high on draft boards heading into the season. Obviously, had that injury, and it's that Kansas City offense, right? So you're going to have hopefully a lot of possibilities coming out of that for sure. Then it wasn't over yet. The trades were not done yet. You had Travis Kelce getting traded to me, or I had Travis Kelce, and people have been asking about him last couple weeks, or Andrews here and there. Nothing really struck my trigger, and then it just made too much sense. Tori loves Travis Kelce. She wants to marry him. I love Le'Veon Bell. I get a running back, and I already have a decent second tight end. I think Andrews will be able to keep top 6, 7 tight end production. I get Le'Veon Bell. What was your take on that 1-for-1 swap there? Both very comparable in terms of points scored this year.
Both teams got what they needed. I mean, Tori needed a tight end after trading Hooper. She got Lockett out of that deal. Then you turn around and get Kelce back to fill that void. Yes, your running backs take a hit because now your RB1 essentially is Devontae Freeman. But you can kind of live with that as long as those guys you get and Lockett and Kelce can kind of carry your load moving forward. So in this regard, I feel like both teams got what they needed. Your running backs, as they weren't bad, they do need obviously a kind of a boost when your RB1 essentially is going to be Josh Jacobs moving forward. Now, obviously, it's changed, but without this deal, it was looking more so like that.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it was just a straight 1-for-1 trade. I got an elite running back, which I feel like Jacobs has been good. My other guys have sometimes stepped up. Breda had a big game. I've really been missing that elite running back I can count on week in, week out. I think Jacobs can be that guy, and I think pairing Jacobs and Le'Veon is going to be big moving forward. But to just have that guy week in and week out, I feel like can produce. And with Darnold coming back, there's not going to be 8, 9 in the box every time. So I think Le'Veon Bell is going to have a really good second half of the season in terms of fantasy, and I think he's got some pretty favorable matchups. I mean, look, his late season schedule is week 9 Miami, week 10 the Giants, week 11 Washington, week 12 Oakland, 13 Bengals, 14 Dolphins. I mean, it's looking good. So I like that late season schedule for Le'Veon. I'm not usually one to look at schedules late like that, but I know it's something to look out for. And then we still weren't done yet. That's not even getting to the start of it. Then we got a 3-team trade that you, Tori, and Dana were a part of that sent LaShawn McCoy and Devontae Adams to Tori. Tori traded the number 3 receiver in fantasy football in Cooper Kupp to Dana, who Dana then sent Cooper Kupp and Jared Cook to you for Austin Hooper and Adam Thielen. So you got rid of that number 1 tight end that you got. You got Jared Cook in return. You got the number 3 receiver, and then you traded Adam Thielen, who is still ranked number 12 overall in receivers, but has had he's had a really bad down week and had some average weeks, and obviously he broke out a little bit last week. Let me ask you this. It kind of comes down to this. You're trading a little bit of your tight end in terms of Hooper and Cook, and you're trading up for receiver and Kupp, but does Kupp stay above Thielen the rest of the season? And by you doing that trade, I'm going to say you're guessing yes.
Yeah, I would say so, based off of the running backs' health in the backfields for those teams. You know that the Vikings, as much as they went out and threw the ball last week, were kind of, I feel like, going to do that more so just because they wanted to get Thielen and Diggs kind of involved more and happier. You're still going to rely on Dalvin Cook for the most part because you can do that. He is now obviously looking great, so you're going to take the load off of those guys if you can. Now Cooper Kupp's situation is Gurley isn't playing very well. He's hurt right now. He may not even play this week. That's when a team like the Rams can take that aerial attack to the next level because you have three guys that can kind of eat on every level. Cooper Kupp's kind of that guy where you'll see him running short, intermediate. He'll run deep routes. He kind of is their main route runner. You can kind of see him in every aspect of the game there. Obviously Woods more so the same, and then Brandon Cooks to kind of take the top off the defense. But just the volume there for Kupp to me was most appealing. If you're getting constantly double-digit targets and today's
17.
day and age, that if you're getting 12 plus targets every week essentially,
yeah,
how can you pass that up? I mean, yeah, he may not capitalize and may catch 4 of those balls for 40 yards, and I get a stinker out of him at that point. But the play there is, the risk is worth the reward.
Yeah, I mean 17 targets last week, and he's only had one game under 100 yards, and that was the week 1 game against Carolina. Other than that, 120, 101, 120, 117, 4 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks. I don't think he has a bad schedule moving forward. San Francisco, we'll see how real they really are. Atlanta seems to just give up yards like it's fun. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh's bad. Chicago, that'll be a tough matchup. Baltimore might be a tough matchup. And then he goes against Arizona week 13. So, again, moving forward, this 3-team trade, I don't want to declare a winner. I don't want to declare a loser. I did put up a poll in the chat just for fun during the show to see what people say. We'll get back to that at the end to see if any more votes pop in. But, I mean, we all talked about this yesterday. I don't see a clear winner or loser among the 3 teams. I think some other people might have certain opinions on that, and it'd be kind of fun to hear what they have to say. But I looked, and I really can't see a clear winner or loser. I feel like every team got what they kind of wanted. I wanted an elite running back, and I was basically the least involved in any of these trades because it was just a 1-for-1 swap for me. But Tyler, I feel like was lacking a little bit more of that star power. He got it, and maybe he's not as high on Damian Williams moving forward. It's all subjective. Torrey got to pair Devontae and Aaron Rodgers and got LaShawn McCoy, who should be a good flex option moving forward, I think. I know a lot of people would be scared of his performance last week. I'm not. And then you got an elite receiver and a more formidable tight end, I believe, than Witten. Even though to this point, Witten has put up more points than Cook, I don't think it stays that way. But do you see a clear winner or loser in the trades?
I mean, obviously, I'm going to want to say myself, but realistically, no. I mean, I can only really assess my own team at this point. I obviously lost some receiver depth trading away Thielen and Kupp. But on my bench that was kind of just chilling was DJ Chark. I mean, that guy's been very solid week in and week out ever since the beginning of the year. So it kind of gave me the ability to now, use him. And I also now have more depth on my bench in regards to Howard. I feel like Crowder can be solid with Darnold coming back. So it just gives me more options. And I feel like when I first started in the league, obviously playing with my lineup, I wasn't changing guys. I really only had one place to kind of pick and choose players, and that was the flex position. So I'm relying on everybody every week, like Thielen and Lockett. Yeah. And we saw last week, not against Dana, the week before that, those 2 guys can be hit or miss just like anybody else can. So having to be kind of stuck playing those guys constantly didn't really get me into a point where obviously I wanted to be. I'm 1-4 right now, and just like anybody else, they can bust. So I feel like something had to happen. This move to me helped me in regards to I feel like I have more upside and can kind of get up to those 120s, 130s week in and week out with the guys I have now. Not that I couldn't before, but it just to me obviously a fresh start.
Well, the way you're looking at it, it's fun. It's funny because it's one of those things where you're right now the 4th highest scoring team in the division, out of 6, which doesn't sound great, but you're 20 points behind me, 7 points behind Dave. If you go in the other division, you're the 2nd highest scoring team. So really, you're the 5th highest scoring team in the league right now. You would argue you should be higher with the McCaffrey-Zeke combo. I mean, really. You would think that. I mean, obviously Zeke hasn't performed at his superstar level. The other thing is, you are 1-4, and I think the last thing you want to do is sit there at 1-4, lose 2 or 3 more weeks in the next 4 or 5, and go, well, I had Zeke and McCaffrey, and I missed the playoffs. And that I felt like you just didn't want to sit on your hands too long and let the season slip away. Is kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I'll kind of close it with this. When you have Zeke and you have McCaffrey, at the beginning of the year, everybody crowned me as, this team's going to be the
Yeah,
team to win it. Congratulations, take the money now type of deal. But this just goes to show fantasy football can be so unpredictable
that's
because
why it's fun.
I have 2 of the top 4 picks in the draft. It gave me 4 losses and 1 win.
Right. Right. And here's the way I'm looking at my team right now, and we'll get to my team in a second. I all of a sudden have 3 first-round picks on my team, just like that. I mean, I know we're not looking at first-round picks anymore, but Le'Veon, Julio, and Michael Thomas. I went from having the 12th pick in the draft to now having 3 first-round picks on my team, which is a little crazy, but we'll see how it pans out. That's to be determined. But let's start getting into the matchups. Like I said, the poll's up, so we'll see if any more people vote. Obviously, this show's not live, so they're not hearing us at this exact moment, but they'll kind of be curious to see. I should have put it up a little bit earlier. But let's get into the matchups. First one's going to be me because obviously it shows mine first since I'm on my screen at the moment. Um, Me going against Chad. Big matchup. We are now in cross division play. This is when you're really going to start seeing divisions separate. When everyone's beating up on each other in division, you get Division 2, which has Chad at 4-1, Kyle at 3-2, and every other team at 2-3 because everyone's been beating each other up. In our division, you have 5-0, 3-2, 3-2, 2-3, and a couple 1-4s. Now we are really going to see, and this is fun last year when the divisions played each other. Because if you really look at both divisions, I think it's not too tough to see that our division's better. I mean, the points speak for themselves. We're going to see if that translates to the records because we are going to see, it can really make a difference that these standings can really start pulling apart. I play Chad. He's 4-1. He leads his division. I'm on a nice little 2-game win streak. I'm projected to win by 5. We're both projected for high totals here. I call them my big 5 are projected to do really well. My quarterback, running back, and 2 wide receivers, all really scheduled for over 15 points here, with Jacobs being on a bye. I'm going to roll the dice with Matt Ryan this week. Overall, this could be a really close matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like down the line, like you guys kind of have like solid matchups between each other. Obviously, Watson against Kansas City, Ryan against Arizona. Those 2 guys can kind of essentially put it the same type of game as each other. Same with James White and Le'Veon against Le'Veon playing a tough Dallas defense. James White playing a horrific Giants defense. You got Dalvin Cook playing Philly. You got Breida playing the Rams.
And it gets started tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll get started tonight, which we're getting ready for that. But this matchup is close. Obviously, even the projections say you're gonna win by 6, which I can't say I agree or disagree with that at the moment because at the same time you have 2 guys who didn't practice today. So for you, the week could change tomorrow, Saturday, if you find out Julio's not playing. You find out, Mark Andrews for whatever reason is not playing. At that point, you're not left scrambling per se, but Shepard's already been passed, so you have to then rely on Mike Williams or pick up a guy off waivers.
Yeah.
So to you right now, I feel as close as this game will be, that news is massive, obviously, but that can make or break your week.
Yeah, it could. And the way I look at it is I think Thursday night's going to be big. Like, I don't know what James White, I mean, you never know what a New England running back's going to do against any other team, but I really think this Thursday night's going to be a big starter. If James White and Golden Tate are held under 20, I'm happy. If they're and I actually have a feeling Golden Tate could be held under 6 or 7 again. I really do. I don't know though. We'll see. He's only in his 2nd game back. We will see. DeAndre Hopkins has still not really been DeAndre Hopkins yet. He needs DeAndre Hopkins to get a 20-plus point game. He's 4-1 without Hopkins really doing much this year. Zach Ertz against Minnesota, that'll be an interesting one. Emmanuel Sanders, Tennessee's defense is pretty good. I think overall my matchups don't look bad. I even think Philly's run defense going against Dalvin Cook, we will see how that does. Dalvin Cook got right back on track last week against the Giants, getting 22 points. Fun matchup. I'm 3-2. He's 4-1. We both don't need wins. I've actually done the math. If I lose this week and any team in my division wins, I'll still be the number 3 team. But obviously, you want to win every week you can. So big matchup in terms of standings can change for sure. Not needed by any team, but standings can change. Next game up is going to be Big Mac Tyler going against Dave, all in a day's work. Tyler's projected for 101. He got that big win last week against Torrey, which I think was needed. Torrey could have been 3-2 in the third playoff spot, and Tyler could have been 1-4. Well, now you got 4 teams sandwiched at 2-3. Everyone's in it. He's got Zeke now, but here's the thing: Chris Thompson's his other running back right at this point. That's interesting because it's Washington. Who knows what's going to happen? New head coach. He's still got Minshew at quarterback, which honestly, he's been pretty good. I can't say that's a bad move because right now he's a number 11 quarterback in fantasy, but it could backfire at any point. Greg Olsen right now is in at tight end, even though he spent all those points on Everett, despite Olsen putting up a dud last week. He's also got McLaurin at the flex. I know we've been saying we're worried about Dave's team. We're worried about Dave's team. But the Chargers going against Pittsburgh, they might run the show against them. I think Dave's got it this week. You?
It's tough. I mean, obviously, Tyler to me has some solid matchups. Across the board, the most glaring thing to him obviously is Chris Thompson. I mean, you don't really have a choice when you don't have Marlon Mack in there, and you usually love Gus Edwards as your secondary dude. So you have to play him. It won't be a game where he's necessarily going to be used either, because those games are going to be blowouts where they play tougher teams. Miami obviously isn't the greatest team, so I feel like it'll be more of an AP game, so that might come to bite him in the butt. But I do obviously think that Dave's team, again, relying on the Chargers and Juju this time, obviously that late game could make or break him. I mean, obviously you have 4 players in that game. If you have Fournette put up a dud or Kittle not play well or Ridley not play well, which I don't really see those guys kind of putting up, bogus games, but hey, for all we know, they could, as we've seen in the past for any player. Obviously, I'd give it to Dave. I don't really have any argument to kind of give for Tyler's team this week, but for all I know, Zeke could give him that 40-point game I've been waiting for.
I think that's what he's going to need. He's going to need Zeke to get 30 to 35 because I think Ridley's going to do well against Arizona. Juju's in that LA game as well, so he's got a lot of guys going in that game. But Fournette, he's been doing really well as of late, so I think this is Dave's game to lose. Projections still have Tyler getting 100, very well possible. But right now, I think Dave looks matchup-wise like the winner in this one, which will put him at 4-2 and Tyler at 2-4. Next matchup is going to be Peter against you. I think, I always try to look at matchups each week and go, which are some of the bigger matchups of the week? And I think this is one of them. I think Peter 2-3, you're 1-4. He's projected for 102. You're projected for 108. I'm curious what his thoughts are on, does he feel like he has a better chance now with those trades? Or does he feel, oh crap, I feel like I have a better chance of losing now. You're gonna roll the dice with Shark this week after all that fun back and forth. He is officially in your lineup now. You're rolling with him. Number 5 receiver in football. Only one game without a touchdown to this point. We've talked about your team already in terms of who you traded for and all that. So looking at Peter's team, he's going to go with Ronald Jones. Josh Gordon is questionable, but he is active tonight. But again, you always worry about Patriots that are even questionable because they might not even see the field. So that's a little worrisome. Disley's been great for him. Does Odell Beckham get it going at any point this year? That's going to be big. I think he needs a bigger performance from him, certainly. I like Gallup a lot. I think Gallup could be in line for another big game again. I think he might be a receiver that's going to be big for Peter down the road. Overall, you're projected to win in a pretty close matchup here, though. What do you feel about it?
I mean, just from an unbiased standpoint, obviously, I look at Peter's team and I say, Beckham, obviously, you traded for and hope that he could come in and kind of make a difference. He has not done that. You made the decision to trade for a quarterback in Baker, who has been awful so far this year. So now you're turning to someone like Garoppolo. to me, Garoppolo isn't necessarily a stud of a quarterback in regards to fantasy, and this matchup this week is not great. I mean, you're playing the Rams, so you're going to have to, dictate the tempo there and run the ball quite a bit, which that team has been doing. That's why, to me, Jimmy Garoppolo will be kind of the thing that makes or breaks them. If your quarterback's not going to be able to get involved in the passing game, and they're going to rely on running the ball majority of the time, which this team does, that could kill you in a week. But
Yeah, and Peter's been patting himself on the back these last couple weeks for being able to pull out wins due to pickups or who he started and stuff like that. Which, granted, he has. He said if he didn't pick up the Eagles defense last week, he would have lost, and he would have. The Eagles put up a third of his points, so Baker Mayfield put up -2. It's one of those things like he's making good pickups that are keeping him alive. He's doing trades that are necessary to keep him alive, including his 83-point win against Tyler. But the trades he's making so far have been completely backfired. I mean, Odell Beckham's been horrible. Baker Mayfield's been horrible. And he gave up Mike Evans, and Jameis, who have performed right now as a duo much better. So we'll see if he can stay alive this week. Obviously, with all those teams being 2-3, he's very, very much alive. You, on the other hand, as much as you need to win this week. I think you're not going to get in at 7-6, starting off 1-4 in division play. You can maybe lose one more time, and you don't want it to be this week. So I think this is a big, big week for you, and we'll see if the new team name can help you out. Next matchup up is going to be Rob against Dana. Dana is far and away projected for the most points this week at 118. I'm the next closest at 114, but he's projected for the most, going against Rob, who is projected for 103. Rob started off 2-0. He's lost 3 in a row. His team does not look bad, but he's got DJ Moore as his second receiver, which I'm not super duper high on, but DJ Moore's played decent this year. Vernon Davis as his tight end. I get they're playing Miami, but that is, I know you got to pick someone out there, but that's tough. I know Ingram's inactive, so you got to roll the dice somewhere. Not starting Melvin Gordon this Sunday night. He's instead rolling with Henry and Connor and Fitzgerald, which isn't bad. Fitzgerald going against Atlanta. But Dana's team, I'll say it now, far and away the best team in the league. I don't see any week going into any week where he should be scheduled to be the loser. His team needs to have an off week for him to lose. Tom Brady on a short week, I think, is going to put up massive points against the Giants. Mark Ingram against a bad Cincinnati team. Chubb should still do his thing against Seattle. Thielen against Philly, we'll see. Cooper should do well against New York. Hooper against Arizona should cook. Aaron Jones against Detroit. Aaron Jones has been running with fire lately. That Patriots defense might be a significant factor. I mean, I'm not saying Rob's team is bad, but Dana's team is just really good. What's your take? You with me?
sorry about that. Essentially, Dana's team is the epitome of us saying, don't look at the players' names, look at their production. Because if you sat here and told me, some of the best receivers in the league are going to be Galladay, Tyler Boyd,
who are on his bench,
Courtland Sutton, I'd sit here and say I could see them being mid-tier guys, but not some of the elite level guys. This in fantasy wise, obviously, but clearly that's not the case. Those guys aren't household names. I mean, Galladay and Boyd can be, but obviously they haven't shown us enough to where teams fear these guys. But they have been putting up fantastic seasons, and they're on his bench. So it's the receivers that have kind of controlled fantasy games so far this year. I mean, you don't really see a team that is winning without good wide receivers, or at least some of those guys who can put up numbers, even if they're not a great talent or whatever. But that right there is the epitome of the whole thing when we say don't look at the name, look at the production.
It's crazy to think, Galladay had a bye last week. I don't know what his rank was before his bye week, but he was likely top 15. So Galladay in the top 15. Sutton is wide receiver 10 this year, and I don't think that's a fluke. I think he is. So I've watched a little bit of the Broncos play. He's constantly getting targets. He's explosive and he moves. I like Sutton a lot. And Tyler Boyd right now, is insane. I liked him before the AJ Green injury. I told you this. I liked him coming into the season more than AJ Green heading into the year. And I think Dave's always kicking himself because he could have had Boyd. Instead, he drafted AJ Green. Tyler Boyd is well on pace for over 100 catches this year. Well on pace. He caught 10 of 14 targets last week. I think he's on pace for close to 110, 115 catches. It is absolutely insane. And he's on his bench. Boyd, Galladay, and Sutton would be some team's number one receiver. They would easily be most teams' number two receivers, and all three of them are sitting on his bench. If you think he's done making moves, he's not. And I don't know what he would really improve on his team. At this point, wait for an injury to happen. If someone goes down, boom, replace him. I mean, it is insane what he's got, and I think he should be able to win this week. Next up, big matchup. I think, again, this is one of the bigger ones of the week. 2-3 Tori going against 1-4 Jay. I think this will be a fun one. It does sound like Davante Adams will be out this week, which is going to hurt Tori significantly. But she could throw in a Corey Davis or someone like that, which isn't a great option. That might be the difference maker in this one. Jay, again, needs another win. Tori, with how wide open that division is, doesn't need a win. She'd like a win. But with Davante Adams trending towards being out again, that's going to be tough for her to overcome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we said before, Tori got two receivers now that she can play week in and week out. But losing one is going to be a big deal because that depth for receiver for her is still just not there. But losing a Davante Adams and having to replace him with a Robinson, who is a boomer bust type of guy, is pretty significant. I mean, obviously, on your bench, too. Her receivers through and through are boomer bust guys. I mean, you have Ted Ginn, you have, John Brown, Corey Davis. John Brown's kind of the only guy you consistently say will catch you 5 balls for 50 yards or whatever. Those other guys are kind of down the field guys. If they don't get hit for 2 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown, like, that's kind of what they're there for. So,
and that's the thing. John Brown's on a bye. Otherwise, that'd be an easy fill. And he's been pretty good this year. But, it makes it tough.
Yeah, and even to me, which looks odd, I know that no one picked up Hilliman or whatever from the Giants, but she's not playing him. And to me, if you
who would you play him over?
Would I play? I would probably honestly play him over somebody like probably not Shady, but maybe Robinson. Just because if Davante Adams is likely going to sit, right? Then right now, I would replace Robinson with Hilliman just so you know that the volume is going to be there. There is no running back on that roster outside of Hilliman and his backup, and the backup probably won't see the field. So he will eat every snap. He'll eat every carry that team will give him, and he's bound to put up some sort of points. At least you know the volume will be there. And in that case, you know that you saved Robinson for Davante, obviously, to play. The last thing you want to do is play Robinson, sit Davante there, and come Monday night, he's not playing. You're kind of shit out of luck at that point.
Right. Yeah, it'll be fun to see what happens because that's going to be huge if Davante is out this week. I think the safe bet right now is just to put Hillman in because you don't really want to risk that. You don't really want to risk him being out. So, but when that core is healthy, Davante Adams, Tyler Lockett, and Travis Kelce, you got to argue is going to be up there as one of the better pass catching trios in fantasy. So we'll see.
Yeah. Let me just also add on to this. For Tori, if she does not play Hilliman, your window to play Hilliman is kind of closed because Saquon will be back next week.
Oh,
and they might even have a bye. So they might. I'm not too sure when their bye actually is, but he'll be back their next game regardless. So he's kind of a play to this week guy, drop next week guy. You don't play him.
And Sterling Shepard's out, and Evan Ingram's out, Saquon's out, Gallman's out. Who are they going to give the ball to?
Yeah, that's kind of your guy right there. So maybe a change is coming.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see. And then so it'll be a fun one. Like I said, it's not a must win. As crazy as it sounds, all those teams are 2-3, not a must win. I will say again, very much like you, it's kind of a must win for Jay. And we really haven't talked too much about his team yet because of the Davante Adams injury, but it's still a huge, huge hole at tight end. OJ Howard has just been brutal this year. I think he needs to make a switch there. But overall, he's kind of throwing whatever he can into the fire and hoping it sticks. And Joe Mixon and David Johnson are just going to have to continue carrying that team, and we'll see if they do that.
And
Going
also,
on to
just hold on one moment. Sorry. Even Jay, same kind of story as Torrey. David Johnson, if he does not play, you kind of have to. Obviously, it's easier for him to kind of dictate that because you have AP playing at 1 o'clock against Miami. So the switch there is easy, but David Johnson
and Chase Edmonds has been picked up in a lot of leagues this week because of that.
So I do feel like if David Johnson does not play, Jay is in a hole still, but not as big of a hole as Torrey would be. So there is a good chance he could pull out a win here.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to the last matchup, let's go to Kyle versus Trey. Kyle's is hit with the bye a little bit this week. His tight end, Darren Waller, is on a bye, who is coming in at rank number 6th, 6th best tight end. Done pretty well this year. No kicker as of yet, so his projections are a little bit lower than what's expected. We'll see what tight end he rolls with. The Bears' defense is on a bye. He's starting to pick up some boys. Barkley being out hurts a little bit. He picked up Chase Edmonds this week. He's told me he's very much expecting a loss this week, not really hoping for a whole lot. And it's not, again, you don't want to lose ever. It's not going to kill him too much. It's just going to make it a little bit more clustered. Trey's team, I've been saying for a few weeks, I think has been trending downwards. I think he really needs to win this week. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, Trey's team is trending downwards up to this point. But depending on Todd Gurley's health, can be trending up because he is getting back Tyreek Hill in probably the perfect matchup to get him back in. You are going to get Tyreek Hill back. Who knows if he'll play, his full kind of snap count as he was before, but they're playing Houston. You still have Mahomes. You get that Hill connection back. You're forced to play Duke Johnson in the flex because you don't really have any other options, but now that's kind of coming to a close, it just sucks because his team got hit with injuries early. You don't have Deshaun Jackson after week 1. If he had Deshaun Jackson moving forward and he was healthy and played even 2 extra games, his lineup looks a lot different and could be playing out a lot differently because of that.
Yeah, 100%, no doubt about it. So based on the looks of it, and these aren't huge buys, but I mean, Waller, Bears defense, kicker, it's usually your 3 positions you don't really have to think, oh, that's going to affect me that much, but it might affect him quite a bit. We'll see. Kerryon Johnson going against that bad Green Bay run defense. Michelle against the Giants. I think Michelle needs 20 tonight to really give Kyle a chance here, but we will see. We'll see what happens. But overall, looking like Trey's going to win. But we'll see. It's fantasy football, right? So before we wrap up, Krim, I wanted to look at that other division for fun. You got 4 teams at 2 and 3. Let's just say for fun, Kyle and Chad are in the clear. Let's just look at the 2 and 3 teams. Which of those 2 and 3 teams you have to pick one to make the playoffs?
That's tough because all the teams kind of have something I like and something I don't like about them. If I had to pick one team, everyone's healthy, everyone's good to go, everyone's playing at their full potential. It's probably Tori, just because she added some good pieces in these trades, and she's obviously had the most points so far up to this point. Peter's team isn't awful, but clearly when it comes to production, is lacking with 492 points. Like, you don't even crack 500 yet, which can change obviously in the drop of a hat. But I just feel like Tori's team just has the most talent in that division out of those 2 and 3 teams.
I would probably honestly agree with you, as crazy as it sounds, because I think Peter's kind of fighting for his life week to week. If he wins, he wins. If he doesn't, he doesn't. There's just not much star power on that team at all. I mean, you would think Beckham would be, but at this point, you can't say that. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. So Peter's surviving week to week. I think 7-6 could get in at third place in that division, especially with how much they've beaten each other up and how much our division might beat them up. I would agree Tori's team has the most talent or has the best looking lineup out of all those 2 and 3 teams. I think you could argue Rob is right there, but we will see what happens because I think he's putting in guys that he doesn't necessarily need to as well. He's been making some decisions. If Melvin Gordon comes out on fire, I think Rob takes it. I think it really is between Rob and Tori at this point. As much as I like Tyler's team coming into the year, we'll have to see how those trades pan out because again, I still think there's some weaknesses there. McLaurin's not been bad by any means, but will he keep that up all year? Greg Olson puts up duds. Hollywood Brown has been hit or miss so far this year. So we'll see. We will see. But overall, yeah, I would agree. I think it's Tori or Rob's team at this point, and with all of them being two and three, it's going to be a fun um, next 8 weeks for sure. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, actually, I can't speak on this because I don't have the means to. But if with you, Dave, and Dana sitting atop our division, looking at the bottom three guys in our division, who would you say is the biggest threat to kind of challenge one of you guys for a playoff spot?
Oh, based on the bottom three, I think it's you. Yeah, I mean, that to me is not very hard to say at all. I think your team has already proven that it's that. Again, you're 7 points behind Dave. I wouldn't, and again, I don't mean to rail on our buddy Dave. If Eckler stays how he's doing, fine. I like Dave's team. I really don't dislike it, but he might be in trouble moving forward. He's probably really happy. Fournette's been doing good as of late. AJ Green needs to come back. Overall, his bench isn't that good. But Kittle, I think Ridley's a good pickup. Schuster should be getting picked up a little bit. I wouldn't doubt by the end of the season if you pass Dave, but you really can't lose that much. But guess what? Your next 5 games are against either division. So if you can beat up on a lot of those 2 and 3 teams, sneak one out against a Chad or Kyle or wherever the case may be, I don't see any reason your team can't still be in it. Your team's still very, very good. I think some people, and this goes on to the poll we have, only 3 votes to this point. I did put it up kind of late, but 2 out of the 3 people so far did say you came out worst in those trades. So that's why we play fantasy. It'll be fun to see how this pans out over the next 8 weeks. But as of right now, I see you being the biggest competition out of those 3. But that means if we're counting me being in the playoffs and Dana being in the playoffs, which I'm not by any means saying that, but who's going to be left out, you or Dave? So I really don't think you can lose much more, but your team's looking good and it needs to start this week. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. Well, yeah, I'll be curious to see how the rest of that poll pans out once everyone else kind of starts looking at it. But thank you guys for tuning in. A lot of craziness happened last week. There might be more coming in the next couple days. We'll have to find out. Until then, have a great fantasy weekend, and we will talk to you guys later.